Hello and welcome to another edition of the KFS Film Session. DJ Zullo here as our New York Knicks take a little bit of a break, a 3-day respite before they host the Sacramento Kings at MSG. And I thought we would do something a bit different here for this session and focus on a particular player, in this case, Jalen Brunson, who is on his way to another All-Star game, likely another All-NBA campaign, and was thinking about this recently about three-level scores where you have the rim finishing, the mid-range shooting, and then three-point shooting. A lot of guys can sort of fall in that category as being a true three-level scorer. There are not too many four-level scorers. And that fourth level, to me, is where Jalen Brunson really shines, and that's that not quite finishing at the rim, really not your traditional mid-range shooting. It's that in-between, or what would be commonly called floater range, that short mid-range area, sometimes in the paint, sometimes just outside the paint, where Brunson is as good as any player in the NBA. But he also has the ability to finish at the rim, has the ability to step out to 20 feet and create a shot, especially late in games. And of course, his three-point shooting over the past several years has been a real weapon. So he's a legit four-level scorer. Only a handful of players that would even put in that category with him. SGA, I think Jokic is probably in there. Kevin Durant, of course, not many. And I thought for this session, we'll really dive in to see how he's able to become so efficient at all these different shooting levels, because I'll tell you, it's not easy. Sometimes he makes it look easy. Other times he makes it look very difficult, because it is. And he doesn't make it difficult because he's struggling, but he is, and this will be a theme, one of the more physical pound for pound players in the NBA, one of the more physical offensive players straight up in the NBA. And we'll really dive in to that aspect of it with the film, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. And we'll start with his finishing at the rim. And on this first one, we're going to get basically a rip and go with a split catch footwork. Really explosive move here by Brunson with Paul George defending. So I'm going to bring that back just a bit. So on the catch, he's already aligning his footwork. And what he's doing is he's splitting his stance wider, and he's going to drive off this foot here. All that prep is happening on the pass. So when he catches it, it's just, he can just rip and have that ability to explode off that left foot. And of course, with no help on this side, there's just nothing for Paul George to do to contain this drive. And then the inside hand finish. Right hand finish, he just wouldn't have had the angle. By going with that inside hand finish, he's able to maintain. There you really get a good look of that left foot, how he drives off it. Split catch, drive off that left foot, a couple of dribbles, and then inside hand finish. Gets it up on the glass quick before George can really provide a great contest. And then we're going to talk about this a lot. His ability to handle the amount of ball pressure that's being thrown at him. It started in earnest, really, in the Pacers series last year in the playoffs. But the trend has continued. Now, most teams will provide some ball pressure to Brunson to try to wear him down. And Knicks will do a pretty good job at times of setting screens, having other players bring the ball up. But there's plenty of times where he just has to win the matchup. And we're going to get a couple back-to-back where he just beats his man. And he's not blown by his defender, but he's using his strength and his balance to keep his path, as a guy like Caleb Martin, a physical, strong, big wing, is trying to bump him off. So I don't know if you caught that. This is a really good look at it. So that right arm is always active. So or whatever, it could be his left arm if he's got the ball in his right hand. That off arm is always trying to discard contact here. And you can see Caleb Martin has lost contact because Brunson has swiped it away. And that is subtle, but it gives him the advantage. And he's got Martin. He's not blown by him again, but he's on the hip. He's on Brunson's hip. But this, to me, Brunson is winning this matchup right now. It's just very difficult at this stage for Martin to get in front and prevent this drive. And then this is just a lethal jump stop. So help finally comes. It's late. And this is that 2-foot ability here. Hop step into the lane and finish. Let's play that one right. I mean, it's just that's just big time. He has his footwork is renowned. The 2-foot jumping ability, the 2-foot footwork, the footwork out of playing off 2 feet, famous for it. That is an explosive maneuver. So his athleticism is really underrated. Again, more ball pressure, and just watch the physicality. Bump. There you go. That arm, right? Using that elbow. He's not fully extending it. But listen, if the NBA is going to allow defenders to do this, 2 hands, literally, he's basically, Schroeder is basically in a offensive tackle, like blocking position here with 2 hands on Brunson. If you're going to allow that, right? You see this? If you're allowing that as the official, you have to allow Brunson to retaliate a bit. Elbow right into the freaking kidney. I mean, that is combative. It's defiant. Gives himself some space. And again, we're in a legit fight here, trying to get to the basket. It's a really good on-ball defense. A lot of pressure being applied, but Brunson is giving it right back. And here is where the advantage is. He's got him basically even. And this is a win for Brunson. And you're going to see some really poor help defense at the rim. But if you're going to apply this sort of pressure, you're going to give up some shots at the rim. And I really was impressed by the level of physicality on ball pressure, but Brunson is just able to fight through it. And then the finish before the help defense can come over. It's not all physicality. Sometimes it's just the craft. And one of the tools he has in his bag to get a lot of his and ones is the low pickup going from his left to his right. You'll see him get a ton of foul calls on this because he's basically baiting the defender as he brings the ball low to swipe at it. So there's the low pickup. And it's just, despite, I'm sure this being in every scouting report of Jalen Brunson, we still get a swipe down. And because that's his gather, he's able to continue with his move and then a right hand finish. It's just, once you bring it here, the instinct takes over. And if you're KCP, you think you can get to it. But it's just, the target is A, moving, and B, much, much smaller than, his wrists and his forearms. So it's just really hard to actually make contact with the ball. Brunson gets through the contact, and it's a nice finish. All the tricks in his bag. But sometimes you just have to be the most physical player on the floor at 6'1". So one of the more effective screen rejectors in this league is Jalen Brunson. Push cross to get to that move. But in this case, we're going to get an in and out dribble with his left hand, get the defender on his heels, get the advantage, and then use his physicality to finish. Boom. In and out, and he's won the matchup. And as he's doing it, he's using that right hand It's hard to really make out where it is, but he's using that right hand to ward off that contact by Neesmith. I mean, you at 6'1" against a well-proportioned wing, to have that arm be into your gut and to fight through it is so impressive. Gets through the contact, and then you could see there how he just veers to his right and basically puts himself in between the rim and the defender. And there's just no way to get to that block shot. Awesome finish. Wrong foot finish. Another key here. So Josh Hart, who rarely finishes with his jumping off his left foot with a right hand finish, Brunson commonly will use I quote, it's not really a wrong foot. Like it's a very common maneuver to finish with if you're a left-hand finisher like Brunson, to jump off your left foot. It's not the traditional way of doing it, but it's a great way to disrupt timing. And all that, like, and just in terms of this, like, one-on-one scenario, all that preamble, all that dribbling, like, once you're on your heels, you've given Brunson the opportunity to really go in through your hip. And I talk about going through the hip a lot, and that's just a way for Brunson to get that angle. And once you get basically on this side of the defender or this side, you can basically get them to open up, and you're getting a driving angle. So here's as the defender opens up, we're going through the hip. There's that right arm again, and then off the left foot with the left-hand finish. Great stuff. And again, here's another physical drive. Knicks are really cognizant of creating these double gap scenarios where you don't have a defender in this zone. You only have one in the deep right corner. Taking away the help defense. Lou Dort is too far away to be in help. And that just provides Brunson the ability to get to his drive. And then again, you're going to see pretty good defense by SGA, but we're going through that outside hip. And we're going to be physical, and we're getting to the basket. There's just a fit, and I call him a combative driver because it's the best way for me to describe like how he's able to get through this defense and still get to where he wants to go and maintain balance. You expose your top foot on this like this, it's just all she wrote. There's not much you can do to get back into the play. We'll bring it back a little bit. So we got basically creating a closeout. Brunson able to get middle, and then it's an inverted step here. So let me see if I can pause it at the right juncture here. So there you go. All right. So he is really smart with this. That's the inverted step. That inside foot. And what you're doing is you're selling this dribble handoff. And it does enough to just freeze the defense. Knicks run a lot of the slot flip action where you have two players coming down on the slots in unison. And then you'll get one player coming in this direction, the other player coming around, and you'll get a DHO action going, flipping it from inside to outside. If you are Jalen Brunson, you can use that to your advantage by having that inverted step, which is the exact position you would be in if you're going to flip this ball to Anunoby coming around. But in this case, Brunson is using it to gain an advantage against the defender. So let's go back a little bit. And it's just a subtle moment where Wallace freezes. and allows Brunson just that little sliver of space to get to the basket. I like this one because it shows you one of the cardinal sins of on-ball defense. Andre Jackson is a really good defensive player. Had a lot of trouble in the last matchup against Brunson because what you can't do as a defender is have your chest going this direction with the defender able to go here or here. And what's going to happen, he's going to counter back to his left. You can sort of, this is basically what you would call like turning and running, where you're not sliding in like a traditional old school basketball sense of like sliding your feet left to right to try to keep an offensive player in front. You can turn and run, but you really have to be aware of your chest positioning, because you want to try to keep that angle of your chest facing the offensive player. Because if your chest is facing that way, despite your lower body going in this direction, if your chest is here, you can react to the counters. If you're in this position, there's no way you can react. And offensive players are taught all the time, like if you're looking at the chest of the defender, just counter back the other way. And this is what Brunson does, counters back the other way. Jackson just has no chance to react to that. And it's a nice finish. So many different ways that he could beat you. Now I think we're getting into the short mid-range floater area. I don't know if there's a better overall float game in the NBA than Brunson right now. You know, I'm sure there's guys you can bring up, you know, Trae Young or Jokic. You know, for my money, in terms of where he could take this shot, this floater, I think he's the best. So first, we're going to get our defender in jail. Suggs in tough position here. We're going to use the patience, and then we're also going to use deception with Cat popping out to the wing here. We're trying to remove the help defender who has to worry about the best shooting center in the NBA. So, and that's exactly what happens. So we get Suggs on his back. We're looking at Cat. We're removing the help defense, and then we're just getting into our 2-step floater. A lot of times he'll shoot his floater off 2 feet. This time he goes off 1 with the 1-2. Smooth looking shot, but I love the eye deception there to get Wendell Carter Jr. to remove himself from help and get over to Cat. Really nice job. All right, so we get a lot of post-up actions with your 6'1" guard. Is always fun to look back on. So this is play from last year, and I wanted to include it because it just shows the versatility of Brunson. And when you get these post-ups coming from the perimeter, it's called the Barkley post-up, and Charles Barkley would utilize this maneuver of bringing the ball up and then dribbling right into a post-up. It's typically not something you see from a 6'1" guard, but we're in that short mid-range area, and we're getting to a little flip hook shot, jump hook. But I mean, it's just physical, going off 2. And just like the guy, if he was 6'8", 6'9", would be an elite post player in the NBA. You just know it. To do that at 6'1" is pretty phenomenal stuff. He can also do it against huge people. Look at this. I mean, taking a guy that's 6'8", 240, 250, and we're going to Barkley post up him, get position, a little running lefty hook. Talk about the versatility as a scorer in the short mid-range area. There's that low pickup again on this DiVincenzo ghost action. DiVincenzo gets out of it. You can see what that does to Maxey. Just that subtle move here gets Maxey to open up. And now Brunson can get downhill. And there's that pickup again. So when you are an offensive player and you see a defender going in this direction, the counter really is to come back the other way. And there's a few ways to do it. You can, I think I may I have one in this session, but bump Euro is one where you can get into the body of the defender and then go back the other direction. Here, Brunson is going to use that left to right low pickup to counter and then maybe draw a foul. Heel keeps his hand away, but it's just a beautiful finish to use the momentum of the defender against him. One of the things that if you watch for it, you'll notice that the on-ball defender on these floaters rarely is able to contest the ball because of how Brunson puts them in a position of a surprise, because some of these shots you expect any player to continue all the way to the rim, but Brunson almost cuts off that drive a beat sooner than you anticipate. And then the second part is you're really removing a lot of the shot blocking ability of the help defense if you're shooting from just outside the charge circle, which is it's not quite at the rim, which is why I think adding this extra level of scoring ability to me is needed to really appreciate the versatility that Brunson has as a scorer. So left to right crossover. We're on the hip. We have the advantage. Here comes Sabonis. So we're getting the help defender coming over. But again, we're years of basketball has told us that we're going all the way to the rim. That's what the defenders are thinking. But he just cuts off that drive a little bit sooner. And because these shots are a high efficient look for him, for most players, you want them continuing all the way to the basket. For Brunson, you can still generate a really high quality offense with these sort of drives outside the charge circle because of how incredible a shooter he is in that area. Phenomenal stuff, man. All right, so let's see what we got next. This was from opening night. It's not a great time this game was, but just got some good action here from Jalen Brunson. Again, we're not even going to get a contest from Jaylen Brown. Get a shot blocker coming over. We're driving through the nail too, right? That's nail is right here. The actual literal nail, I don't know if it's still there nowadays, or this was where it used to be, but when we're talking about the nail, that's where we're talking about. And Brunson driving that nail, it's almost like he hones in on this zone. And if he's able to get into this area, he's so tough. And because he doesn't require himself to get all the way to the basket because of his shooting ability just outside the charge circle, and the advantage, right? This is a clogged lane with Hart's presence, Kornet coming over, and Tatum there. He goes all the way to the basket. This is not going to be a great time, but he's able to pull up just enough to get it over the top of Kornet, and we don't even get a shot contest from Jaylen Brown, and a nice finish. I think we're going to get a top foot exploitation here. Yeah. So Jarris Walker, really good young defender. But this is just food for Jalen Brunson. On his heel, top foot exposed. You're rejecting, so we're going away from the screen again. I mentioned we've seen the in and out dribble. This is the left to right crossover I talked about earlier. Stephon Marbury, by the way, huge Knicks fan, former Knick, been to a ton of games of late. I think the best pushed cross that's ever played the game. He was another one that would kill teams with rejecting screens with that left to right push cross. Here, Brunson does it against Jarris Walker. And then it's that deceleration ability. So Walker, not in the worst position here, but just puts the brakes on a little bit and finishes. So many options as a finisher. All right. So we had Donovan Mitchell on a switch. Advantage Jalen Brunson. We talked about the top foot, right? Now Mitchell is really exposing that back foot. And it's always interesting when a player decides to go towards the back foot versus the top. I think Brunson as a defender actually is pretty notorious for opening up a little bit too much and allowing defenders an easy driving lane. And that's kind of what Mitchell is doing here. Giving Brunson that driving angle to me was a little bit, you're exposing that back foot a little bit too much. And again, no contest here. And the big is just a little too deep. Can't get quite out there to block the shot. Don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, if Brunson is taking this one all the way to the rim, Mobley is eating that shot up. But because Brunson takes off where he does, he's eliminating the impact of the shot blocker. Another one, this one against Devin Booker. We're going to step through. All right, so talk about the footwork, the ability to use physicality. So he bumps Booker off there. Now Booker is a little bit off balance. He's trying to get back into the play. And as he steps in, step through, and probably should have gotten a foul call on this one. Booker seemed to have gone A to B. Maybe Brunson leaned in a little bit too much, but the touch to finish with that step through. Awesome. Empty side on the right. So no help defender in this way. A lot of room for Brunson to operate. Again, there's that left to right push cross. We're rejecting that Bridges screen. We're attacking Trae Young, who's basically in the position to provide help. He's not going to provide much help. Brunson, we're combative, we're physical, and we're just shooting an insane shot. Because that, to me, Dyson Daniels does a good job of getting back into the play. Brunson takes the hit. And that just to be in this position here and to get that ball onto the rim, I can't put into words how difficult this shot is. And it's almost one of those things where you just see it so often that you take it for granted. But I'm telling you, this is elite shot making of the highest order. So good in that short mid-range area. More action against the Hawks. Again, we're emptying that side. We're giving Brunson room to operate. Good defense by Daniels to get back into the play. And this is one last year. I thought he always had this move, but he really went to it time and time again in the Pacer series. Pivot away. Fall away. It's a great counter to a defender. So you've done a good job if you're Dyson Daniels to get back into the play. But that's an explosive move, and now you've generated a good amount of space. I mean, this is a lot of space in a tight window here to pivot away, and then the high release point. Really does a nice job of taking what the defense gives you. So you're in good position, and that's just a beautiful textbook shot. Again, pivot away. You've generated your space. You've gotten the defender to be on his heels. And then here's the other aspect to this is you're adding one of the higher release points for size in the NBA. So you have a high release point and you're generating that amount of space and you have great touch. And that's just a tough combination to deal with. Your physical and then the craft and the footwork and that amazing shooting touch. Now, sometimes you just can't get into the areas of the floor that you really want to. And I think when Brunson gets into trouble, it's when defenses can keep him now in this level, which is your more traditional mid-range shooting, 18 to 20-ish feet. But sometimes you just have to have, especially at his size, you have to have options here. And he certainly does. Here we get space. We get Valanciunas on his feet. We step through. We take the hit, and then still have the ability, the strength, and the touch to finish that. Now we're just messing with the footwork of the defense. So watch the feet. Brunson, that's what he's looking for. So we get the top foot exposed. Now we can attack in this direction. Defender will have to open up and still get a contest. And it's just a lot to ask. So he opens up, but Brunson's already into his pull-up at that point. Attacking the top foot, boom, pull-up. Efficient. Like the efficiency of movement is so good, combined with the quickness and the versatility. All right, we're taking the screen on this ice, and we're going to get just a lethal, mind-bending in and out dribble using his giant paws. And I don't have a number on his hand size, but for his height, he must have giant hands or just incredible hand strength to be able to manipulate the ball in this way. Look at this in and out dribble. I mean, that's an abnormal amount of space to create in this window here, because if you're a defense, you are in pretty good shape. Icing this, you're in drop. You've contained so you're not giving up the pull up, but that in and out just gives him enough space to get into a comfortable pull up from about 15 feet away. Incredible. We're emptying that corner again, and now we're just playing one-on-one. And we're going to get a little step back. So we're physical. We're in the defender, and then we're just using that release point. So that release point is probably more for a guy 6'4", 6'5" than a 6'1", 6'2" guard. To get it to that point, it just gives him so much room for error and the ability to get shots off in tight windows. I mean, it's not bad defense, right? You're at the release point, but it's the physicality before the release, the little step back, and then the ability to get the high release point. Add that in, and it's no wonder he can live in these areas and still be pretty efficient. All right, a few more here. Now we're into that 3-point shooting level. And one of his favorite moves over the past couple of years is this punch dribble with the right hand. Right there. Little punch dribble into the step back. And it's just really tough to deal with because you have to be aware of the drive. And it's a great move for him. So the punch dribble there with the right hand, and it's sequenced with that step back, going to his right. Play through again. Watch that final dribble and the velocity, the violence, boom. To get that shot off, get that space. And sometimes you just have to do it off the ball. And sometimes you just have to get into the vision of the offensive player or the player with the ball. So I believe we're getting a baseline drive here by McBride. And you're going to see Brunson relocate here. And he's really good relocating into the right corner to get into the vision of the ball handler. That's key. So there's the baseline drive. And here's the drift here to the corner. If Brunson stays, there's no pass. By drifting, he's getting into the vision of the ball handler. Really good relocator without the ball. And it's an open 3-point shot created by the McBride baseline drive, but the relocation there, huge. And Brunson knows that. He's really high IQ because he knows as a guy that controls the ball primarily, he needs his guys to get into his line of vision on his drives. Knicks have had plenty of guys that are really solid at doing that. So McBride's actually one of them. That's really good at getting into the eyesight, the vision of the ball handler. Good job there by Brunson. And just another way for him to try to get up some of those catch and shoot opportunities. All right. So what do we got? I think we got a little step back, snatch back. Yes. So Brunson has used this move. And he's got a little variation on it that I'll show in here in a bit. But he's got the snatch back shot as well. And it's just one of those things. You got to have these shots in the bag to get the volume up. And he's brought this move out a few times. The no dribble snatch back into the pull up. It's a nice little extra option there as a 3-point shooter. There's that punch dribble again. The nice rhythm dribble there with his right hand. The defense has to bite on it. And it's able to open up just enough space for him to get into his shot. And that's the sort of the 3-point aspect of his game. So we talked about the finishing at the basket. We talked about that short mid-range area. We talked about the traditional longer mid-range shooting and the 3-point shooting. So he really does have all 4 levels to his game, which, if he's not shooting great, and we've seen plenty of games where he hasn't shot the ball at his best this year, but he has the ability to drive, get to the foul line, get to the short mid-range area, finish at the rim. So he has optionality here where if he didn't have the 3-point shooting, or if he didn't have the floater area, or if you take one of these aspects to his game away, it would be very detrimental. The fact that he has all 4 of them and can do it all in such a way and utilize whatever one is needed in that scenario. In the most recent game against Brooklyn, it was some mid-range shooting that was needed. Not the most efficient offense, but in the fourth quarter, in a game where the Knicks offense really didn't have a lot going for it, sometimes you just need to fall back on self-created mid-range shooting. And the fact that he could do it at a reasonable level is massive, and it has been massive for him in the playoffs as well, and gives you confidence that with this offense that there's, for this round as opposed to last year, more players around him that can maybe allow him to utilize his elite skills, which is the kind of the floater 3-point shooting areas, and not necessarily have to rely on that mid-range shooting, but to know it's there is a real benefit, not only to Brunson, but obviously for the Knicks to have a player like that. Hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun breaking that down. I can geek out, nerd out on Jalen Brunson offensive exploits any day of the week. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you like and subscribe to this channel. It really does a lot for us to continue getting the word out. Keep in mind that we have a Patreon film tier, the Brunson tier, aptly named, which Benji and I doing a lot of film work on there. Benji's enhanced grades, film work that I'm doing on a regular basis, mailbags. Benji's writing articles. We're doing pods with Macri, a lot going on over there. So give the Patreon a checkout. I think the link will be at the bottom here of this program. And then, of course, follow us on Twitter at DJ Ace NBA, and of course, and really, please follow us, like us, share, subscribe to us on that YouTube channel. It really, really is huge for us. Benji will be back here next week with another edition of the KFS Film Session. I'll be back in 2, and until then, so long.